You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, D.Cal.
And what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy D-Cal here, hosting the E.I.T.H.R podcast, episode number 134 from the GNSHQ here in Northern California. Welcome to the new listeners. Welcome back to the returning people. I just want to say, if you are in the United States of America, happy Labor Day afternoon. If you're anywhere else on the globe, hopefully it's a holiday for you too, and you're able to put your feet up and have an awesome 3-day, 4-day weekend, wherever you may possibly be. It's the E.I.T.H.R podcast, the elephant in the room, where we have discussions and topics about topics that are usually difficult for people to have with their peers because everyone tends to be one-sided or short-sided. So I try to address everything from a multitude of perspectives. So even if you choose to disagree with what it is that I am saying, which obviously you have that God-given right, hopefully you'll be a little bit more informed with what it is that you're disagreeing with. So follow us on the social medias, Instagram and Twitter at the E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R. Give a follow, we'll follow back. You can also hit us up on the text line or the phone call, 916-282-9372. You can text, call, suggest things that you would like for me to bring up. If you want to keep it confidential, we can. If you want me to give a shout out, we can do that too. You can also subscribe to our free TV channel, which is GNSETV.com. GNSETV.com. Free subscription, doesn't cost anything but a couple moments to fill out a profile and subscribe. There you have it. That's pretty much it. Enough said. So, to those who are new to the podcast, what we do here is we like to begin everything with a shout out, and we give inspirational, motivational. Episode 134, so I've been doing this for a quick second. We're that much closer to 150. I know the teachers have been making a big deal about reaching 150, so I just wanted to acknowledge that we're reaching 150 episodes, which for us over here is a great little milestone. So first thing we want to do is give a really minor shout out, a really major shout out to everybody enjoying their weekend. Keep it simple. We're going to make this quick so the rest of you guys could go back to whatever it is that you were doing before you tuned in to the Elephant in the Room podcast. So shout out to everybody out there who is enjoying their 3-day or 4-day weekend, whatever it may possibly be. Hope this is the best Monday you're going to have all week, and I sincerely mean that. Words of inspiration and motivation is really, really simple, which ties into one of the topics that we're going to talk about today's episode. A scientist will read dozens of books in his lifetime, but still believe he has a lot more to learn. And I'll just rephrase this. An ignorant person barely reads one book and thinks they know it all, right? And we all know that person or that group of people who would do something, right? We talked about it before. On the podcast, man, you will get somebody who doesn't read the articles, somebody who has no idea what's going on, and they just want to dip their whole 2 cents in what they believe because they feel they're right into the conversation. And it is definitely a pet peeve of mine. I think the biggest pet peeve when it comes to that, though, is those who realize they've made the mistake and cannot admit they made the mistake. Like, oh shit, my bad. I didn't know. My bad. I thought it was something different. Okay, cool. You know, they can't do that. They gotta kind of hold their ground and look even more as an ignoramus, as they may say in the hood. So that's pretty much it. Today's episode, man, is we're going to address some people that we tend to protect a lot of folks. I don't want to say they're cancers. I don't want to say that they're problematic. Sometimes it's just a matter of allowing certain things to go on longer than it needs to be, and that definitely can create a problem in a person's development, a person's growth, especially at an early age with childhood all the way to adulthood and so on and so forth. So we're going to talk about that. And I saw this video, which happens to be a major topic in certain circles, that we're going to talk about the state of California. So it's not me saying bye to California, but we'll just say there's some major players leaving the state, and it's leaving a lot of people curious why they're leaving the state. So we're going to address that during today's episode. So, stick with this. It's going to be extremely brief. Appreciate you guys doing that. So, it's your boy D.E.H.R here to Eat the Podcast. We're going to get a word from our sponsor in a few seconds, and then we're going to cut straight to the chase. So, hold on to that. Be right back. It's your boy D.E.H.R.
Stop stalling and start miling. Mile.today. That's MILE.today. Mile today. Make it look easy.
All right, everyone, it's your boy D.E.H.R here to Eat the Podcast. Give me one quick second. Just addressing something real quick. Give me one moment. So, as we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of people in our lives that tend to be, I guess you can say, reasons for some of the things that goes on in their life. And a lot of times we tend to protect those people. I said something on social media. I'm going to read this for you. It's on Instagram as well as Twitter. And it goes, ever notice how sometimes we protect those who create the problems we set out to dismantle? I'm not going to say, oh, you haven't? Well, pay closer attention next time. And there's a lot of folks who run in circles with people who typically what they do is they will antagonize or provoke a situation for their own pride. And when this problem becomes a greater problem, then all of a sudden these people tend to fall victim. Now, I know there's certain cultures and there's certain lifestyles and whatnot that basically says, listen, whether right or wrong, I got your back. And the problem with that, in my opinion, is you tend to give that person the green light to behave however he or she feels they want to at that point in time with no accountability. Now, I know there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, where you have some individuals who are mature enough, they're smart enough, they're wise enough to understand. They can kind of check themselves. They can read the temperature. They can read the room. They understand that listen, man, I shouldn't act this way. I shouldn't behave this way, so on and so forth. But you get those people who also tend to feel that they have backup. Backup in a sense to where no matter what happens, you're always going to be there for them. And in my opinion, that's a very toxic trait to have, because these are individuals who, in many cases, feel, listen, none of this is my fault. None of this is my fault, even though they're the ones who started it. Growing up, I can say, from experience, my mother was this way. My mother was, in many cases, regarding my dad, would self-sabotage things when they were going well. I didn't understand this till years after she passed away. But what she would do is create a problem that didn't need to exist. Or she would provoke a problem that she assumed was going to happen anyway. Which kind of made everyone feel, okay, where is this coming from? And because of that, the pot got stirred. And people kind of understood, my father would understand, okay, Maxine's in the mood. She's doing this, that, and the third, so let's just do whatever it is. And she would always have this one line that just, it got under my skin to hear her say it to my dad. She'll list of things that he needs to do around the house and things that he needs to do and so on and so forth. And she will always hit him with the infamous, if you don't like it, you can get out. It was almost, and I understand this comes from her upbringing with my grandfather, because in a different time, different era, different generation, it was do as I say, not as I do. So she kind of mirrored the raising, the relationship, the communication that she was raised under. And so she brought that into her own family. Like I said, I didn't understand this till I got older, and it was after her passing. But whenever her and my dad would get into a discussion or into an argument, let's just call it what it was, then, she would contact my brothers, who would come over and handle the situation the way they felt needed to be handled. And I was there to witness that. And it made me feel, again, this is how you're supposed to communicate. Even though I knew it wasn't the right way, it was, the monkey see, monkey do type of thing. So, and they would protect her, knowing that she themselves eventually realized she created this problem, she caused this problem, she provoked this problem, she antagonized this problem, she initiated this problem. But because that's my mom, you just gonna have to deal with it. It was a constant, this is what it is, so put up with it. And it was horrible. It was a very shitty life to go through, because I, even as a teenager, understood, like, do as I say, not as I do. That don't fly with me. Like, that don't make any sense. I'm going to do as you do. So don't tell me to do something and you do the opposite because you can. Like, that's not, that doesn't make any sense. So later on, it was one of my brothers who said, sometimes we understand that mom brings these situations upon herself. Like, she'll do it knowing she has us to come through and regulate a situation. Now, my dad is not the same as their fathers. So, but they knew my dad before I was even born, because they were, they're all older than me, clearly. But it was a very rough time trying to figure everything out and understand how everything worked. It wasn't until when I first got my apartment that my mother attempted to do the same routine in my apartment. And I kind of set the record straight. Like, listen, this is my home. I pay the bills here. I pay the rent here, right? You're a guest in my home. If I was at your home, cool, great, awesome. I have to abide by your rules. But you're in my apartment, and that doesn't fly here. There is no, it's peaceful, it's quiet. There's no animosity. There's no arguing. There's no fussing. There's no fighting. Now, if you don't like it, you can get out. So I kind of flipped the script on her. And she kind of looked at my dad. She was in the kitchen of my apartment. My dad was in the living room with me doing his puzzle book, and I was playing my PlayStation at the time. And she kind of just kept quiet and going back to doing whatever because she felt like she wanted to cook something. So she went back to cooking, and I kind of looked at my dad because I was waiting for her to say something to him. And he kind of gave me this smirk like, "Attaboy, son. I'm proud of you." Because I said something that he was not allowed to say without conflict or confrontation. So after that moment, the dynamic changed where a lot of things that happened when she would visit me you can tell was an adjustment for her. Like she was more aware of what she said, how she said it, because now she was in a position where she couldn't pull the strings and get away with anything, because now she is running the risk of being, quote unquote, put in her place, for lack of better terms. And it was a really good feeling because I stopped the one person who I loved and cared for doing something that was repetitively done and no one else did anything. And I did it in a way that wasn't combative. I did it in a way that wasn't confrontational, but it was in a way where it was like, yo, this shit needs to end. And it worked. And I noticed there's a lot of people, friends, other family members, who say things, do things, and they have this pre-notioned arrogance, again, for lack of better terms, to where I'm gonna do what I want, and if you don't like it, you can kick rocks, you can leave, you can get out, you ain't got to come here. It's very hard for people to understand that no, you're the reason why this happened, right? How many times is something, for example, you've seen a car accident, right? Both people in a car accident, or everyone's like, oh my God, it's your fault. Both people, it's your fault. Well, again, it's easy to blame somebody, right? Because we point more fingers than we point thumbs. So some folks tend to always want to blame the other person. And I notice this on a regular basis with a large number of people. When you ask them what happened, they always leave out the part of what they did, right? They always dump truck the fault of the other person that she or he is talking to, always. And then when you go back and like, no, okay, but what did you do? What happened before that? Like, what caused it? If you pay close enough attention, and most of us do not, but if you play close enough attention, a person will literally play the scenario in their head and debate on what they're picking and choosing what they want to say. Because again, in order for me to be the victim, I have to omit everything that I did to create it. So there's always going to be holes in a story. And that's kind of where the other person comes in, and you hear their side of the story, because most likely they're going to have holes in their story as well. And then you piece the parts together and you kind of tell the story what it is. Most folks who are in the wrong, not always, but a good portion of the time, most folks who are in the wrong always tell you what happened or what they did based on how they felt the other person did. Here's an example. Again, car accident. Someone speeding to beat a red light. Your light turns green. Whether you see the car, hear the car is irrelevant. You excelled at your green light. You get hit, you get T-boned. Someone's behind you is a yellow light. You feel you're not going to make that yellow light before it turns red. You brake. The person behind you rear ends you. Okay? I gave you two different scenarios of an accident, but it was still an accident nonetheless. The person who hit you is going to say it was your fault. Never mind the fact that they ran a light. Never mind they sped up, not realizing, oh, you're stopping. Never mind that because they expected you to go. Never mind that part. The fact is, they hit you because you did this. Ask them what happened. Well, what happened? Well, they cut in front of me. Okay. Well, who had the right of way? The person who hit you, at that point, they're usually going to be like, now they feel if I say they have the right of way, it's my fault. So immediately that person is going to cop an attitude. Man, fuck all that, man. No, see, if your ass didn't go, you wouldn't. It's almost like you're getting super defensive and emotional when I ask you, well, who had the right of way? Most cases, that's a telltale of, oh, it was your fault then. Okay, so they had the right of way and you probably were trying to run the light and didn't make it and you hit them. Got it. So that's what, if you really pay attention, at least I have, that's what most law enforcement and lawyers do. They hear your story and they look for holes in your story. So, am I going to sit back and say that I'm innocent in anything? Absolutely not. But here's one thing that I have learned. If I clearly don't do anything that puts me in a position to where I have to sit back and tell a story, then I really ain't got nothing to worry about. But if I do happen to get put into a situation, I've learned, yo man, it's just easy to sit back and say, this is what I did, this is what happened, in fact, this is what I did to respond to that, this is how they reacted to my response, here's how I reacted to their reaction, and here we are. I kind of just lay it out. Now, if people sit back and say, that's stupid, that's dumb, that's moronic, that's idiotic, like, why would you do that to yourself? Then I simply say to you, then don't put yourself in a situation where you have to do that. Right? That's what I've learned. If I don't put myself in a situation where I have to go through all that, then I won't have to go through all that. Again, we protect people, especially friends, because we value that friendship so much. I will allow you to be wrong because I don't want to lose you. Self-experience, that is a huge sign of, in some cases, an insecurity. An insecurity of being by yourself. I've learned that. I've also learned those people, like I said in the beginning, they're more likely to continue being who they are because, believe it or not, it's almost perceived as if you support that. And we all know the notion, or most of us have heard the notion, you are the company that you keep. Right? Guilty by association. Birds of a feather flock together. So it's kind of one of those scenarios, man. Even if you're not as bad as the person that you're with, you're going to be viewed to be just like him or her because guilty by association. That's why a best friend will always defend you and say you're right. But a great friend, from my experience, would always put you in check. Now, I know there's a rule where you don't check your friend in the heat of the situation, like you have to have their back. Circumstantial, but I get it. My opinion, circumstantial, but I get it. But a great friend would always prevent you from going that far. A great friend will always grab you, hold you, say, no. You're about to cross the line. Let's not put ourselves in this situation. I have your back. Know this. But I also have your front. And right in front of you is that line that you're about to cross and put me in something that I don't think we should be in. So let's back away and move the fuck on. That's what a great friend would do. And if you have a friend that you say that to, or a family member that you say that to, and they give you attitude because they want to go ahead and cross that line anyway because they want this other person to see who they are and that's the kind of energy I don't think you want in your life, right? I don't think you want that. And I remember watching this video with 50 Cent, and the video says something to the effect of, if you ever notice the well-off person, never they never start the problem. The person who's doing well off never starts the problem. They never create the issue. They're never the one to provoke or antagonize or to start it. It's always the one who has nothing to gain or everything. It's the one who has nothing to lose, right? It's the one who has nothing to lose. That person, whoever he or she is, who don't really have anything going for themselves, they're the one who is quick to start something because they feel this is what I got to do to make that flex. And again, if you have friends who are like that, it's really going to put you in a bad situation to where what could take you a second to get into could take you a lifetime to get out of. And I'll never forget that piece of advice. And by doing something like that, you now run the risk of losing everything that you possibly worked for. How is that a benefit to you? How is that a benefit to them? How is that a benefit to your circle? It really isn't. Because now you're in a situation where if you have something going and they don't, and they're the ones to flex and throw the first punch and put you in a situation, and that's your friend, and you're going to ride for your friend, you're now going to risk losing what you have in defense of someone who antagonized the problem that could have been completely avoided. But they wanted to be the man or the woman of the hour, right? I feel in situations like that, man, you really need to self-evaluate and check who you allow in your circle, because that can come back to bite you. Now, if that person has a problem with you constantly trying to make sure that you don't get put in situations and you look out for them, but they are constantly looking to get into something anyway because of just whatever, you have to ask yourself, what mindset do they got? What mindset do I have? And do our minds meet? Do we have that in common? Is that something that I really, really want to put myself into? If the answer is yes, hey, green light, keep going. If the answer is no, full stop, reevaluate. Because for me, as much as there's people around me who provoke and antagonize and start shit that I just want to respond to, I have to ask myself, is what I've worked towards achieving, is that worth losing to entertain somebody who clearly is not making any progress in what they got going on? Because again, if you're doing well, you're not trying to lose what you got. You made progress from wherever you started from. You're not trying to put any of that in jeopardy. But if someone who's willing to do some street shit because they just feel some street, then whatever it is they're doing, they're literally doing it just for fun. They're literally, there's no passion, there's no heart, there's no progress on their end, right? Even the most gangster person that you can think of will sit back and say, okay, listen, I have a criminal record, I just got out, I'm doing this, I'm pursuing what I wanted to pursue. Do I really want to make this move? No, I really don't. Okay, cool, I'm gonna walk away. Even people who have bodies, right, will sit back and say, listen, I know this person is talking slick, I know this person is really coming out their mouth, I know this person is trying to be, the baddest bull grazing in the yard. But do I really want to put up with the consequences and everything that comes after that? No, let me just walk away. Now, if you are put in a situation where there is no out and you have no other option but to jump, may the best man, may the best woman win. But if you can avoid that situation, I'd rather be labeled as a coward to protect what I've been investing my life into to see another day than to be considered a real one just for something to happen and I lose everything in a flash. Now I'm in the same situation as the person that I'm with. Does that kind of make sense? So you really should, in my opinion, look at the people that you're with. Ask yourself, is this the group that I would entertain? Simple as that. And then we're going to get into the last thing real quick. Bye-bye California. So I saw a video, and again, this video is my first time seeing it today, but it's a topic of something that's been going on for a long minute, and that is this. Apparently, insurance companies are leaving the state of California. I believe State Farm is out. Farmers is out of the state. And the conversation is because of all the wildfires that's happening within the state. Nobody wants to insure properties because of that. Right? That's what the speculation is. That's the talk on the cyber streets from the people that I'm like, hey, did you hear about this? Did you know about this? They're like, yeah, this has been going on for a minute. Someone even said this is like it started like 3-4 months ago, somewhere around that time frame. And now it's literally hardly anybody's going to want to do any type of insurance on a home in this state. Now, this is completely speculation. This is completely my opinion. This is completely my guess. I'm betting conspiracy theorist time, right? So let's just do this right quick. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right? A little bit like that. I'm thinking it's a little bit bigger than what we see. I feel, to be honest with you guys, that we are in a situation where the insurance companies, corporate America is about to buy up more property. Actually, let me take it to America. Let me take that back. Put it this way. Businesses, gig companies are going to buy up these properties, right? And then rent them out to their employees. So in a sense is no longer in exchange for time is your money, but in exchange is your time because you're working for me and I'm also your landlord. That's what I'm thinking. That's just me, though. That's just me, right? I feel some of these places, I think fires are going to happen in certain areas. I think properties and structures are going to get burned and destroyed. I feel, again, this is my opinion, so say what you choose, but I feel these places are going to rebuild, restructure, and set it up to where we now offer you housing as well as employment, right? So now it's like your employer is also your landlord. I can see that becoming an issue. I can see that becoming a thing. Your employer is also your landlord. So we not only pay your rent, but you pay us the rent back. It's a great, in the music industry, I think it's called a 360. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I see it. I see it to where I know where you are 24/7. Right? I know where you are 24/7 because again, you if you're not at work, you're at home. Now, you don't necessarily have to worry about not making money to pay your rent anymore. That fear is being eliminated in this example. We're taking that out of the equation. You don't have to worry about not being able to pay your rent. Because, an example, the compensation we're giving you is covering that. You just need to do the workload that's required to make sure that the compensation is paid off, is paid back, it's in return, in exchange. That's me. Where did I get this idea from? Back when I was doing Uber in Menlo Park, I gave a ride to a gentleman, and he was telling me, because he did something in construction, allegedly, supposedly, apparently, Zuckerberg had bought up some property that was not too far from the campus. And I was like, word? He was like, yeah. So the rumor was, and this is the gentleman telling me this, rumor Zuckerberg bought up these properties, and a lot of his interns who are from other countries, they stay there. Whether this is true or not, again, this is what I was told, and kind of where I got the idea. So the intern stays at the property for X amount of time, 90 days, 120 days, 6 months, whatever the case may possibly be. And when their internship is over, they now have the option to A, still live there, because he's providing you housing, or you can go back to where you're from and work remotely. You choose. And I said, really? He said, yeah. Again, this is where I kind of got the idea, because he said, if you really think about it, it's smart from a business perspective, because the salary I'm paying you is taking care of your transportation, your Uber or Lyft. Again, it's like back in 2018, 2019. So it was like the salary he's paying you is taking care of your commute to and from, right? He already owns the property, so he doesn't have to worry about the rent. But if you choose to stay there and pay the rent, right, you're going to be offered a salary that's going to comp for the housing appropriately and transportation appropriately. So while you think you're getting this awesome salary to work at this prestigious company, they're looking at it and kind of saying, the average income is this, the median house pricing is this, the average mortgage is this, the average rent is this. Okay, what's the distance, the average Uber prices, the average Lyft prices? Okay, based on these calculations, we're going to give you a salary of, and they don't discuss this with you, of course, but in back end. Okay, based on calculations, we're going to go ahead and offer you a salary of, I'm just making up a number, don't hold me to it, as an example, $150,000. In your mind, you're like, yo, that's paid. I'm good. Even though $117,000 is considered to be poverty in the Bay Area nowadays. But in this example, if you come from a country where, people are used to making $5 a week, as an example, $150 a year, that's you've accomplished, you made it, and you're working for a prestigious company. Well, out of that $150K annual salary, factor in your mortgage, factor in your transportation, and it's not uncommon for a multitude of people to live in a one-bedroom apartment on the peninsula or the South Bay. So it's very common to see 4, 5, 6 people living in a studio 1, 2-bedroom apartment. Very common. So if you have you and 3 other roommates, you can do that. So with all that said, I think, again, my opinion, corporations and gig companies are looking at this and saying, we'll work something out with the insurance company to where we can buy it outright. Now, if, again, I'm speculating. I'm repeating this shit so people don't sit back and say, yeah. What I'm saying is, it wouldn't surprise me if these companies turn around and buy property or buy the land so they can develop on it, because they understand, unlike most people in our tax bracket, they understand the difference of investing short-term versus long-term. They understand it's going to cost us so many millions of dollars now to do this, but over the next 96 months, we're going to start having a return on our investment. And from there, it's going to be, I'm making up a number, a 27% increase in profitability. That's how they see it. They look at it, everything as an investment, not necessarily as an asset. Oh, not to mention any equity that's gained from this is additional profit, right? And so I don't know the tax breaks for that scale of real estate as a corporation buying residential or buying plots of land and developing it into possible commercial housing, so on and so forth. But when you are when you're in that peak of the mountain, there's tax breaks and loopholes you can find and figure out. So with that, California is losing insurance companies, especially because of all the wildfires that would happen, which is interesting because you have states that have tornadoes on a regular basis, but yet they still have them. What's the point? And this is kind of where I'm like baffled, because what's the point of having insurance if the insurance company doesn't want to pay out if something I'm paying insurance on occurs? That's wild to me. That's wild. It appears I'm giving you money to be insured if this takes place. Being that this event is taking place at a more frequent rate, y'all want to leave because you don't want to pay because of how expensive that tab can get. Maybe you understand how the consumer feels when anything happens to your car and you report it to your insurance company. Your premium increases even though you didn't do it, right? My example earlier, you get hit by somebody. It clearly wasn't your fault. It's been proven it's not your fault. It's determined it's not your fault. What happens to your insurance premium? Still goes up. Now, it probably won't go up as much as it would if you were at fault, but the fact of the matter is it still went up. How many people are driving around getting car accidents? So the premium is constantly going up on a slew of people, which is more money for the insurance company. But with all these fires and everything occurring, you mean to tell me that you guys don't want to pay out if this happens to my home? I get it, but I just don't get it. I get it, I understand it, but at the same time, I don't get it, and I just don't understand it. Because it seems that the whole name of the game is to take the money and to do everything you possibly can to not pay back the money in which the exchange is meant to do. So part of me starts to think, okay, well, maybe these cats are doing this insurance just so that way they can have a high valuation on paper so their company can look and have a perspective. Look a certain way, be of a certain value. They have no intention on really doing it. I mean, they have to because that's what the contract says, but they do everything they possibly can, allegedly, supposedly, apparently, to not pay out the monies during certain policies and claims. They look for any damn loophole they possibly can to delay, prevent, or disregard any type of payout for an incident. It's interesting. I'm like, why do you have it so there's so many loops I gotta jump through to get the money you say is sitting right there for me if this happens? Right? Now, let that happen to you and paying your premium, but it's cut off, it's done. You gotta start all over from scratch. I mean, there's no mercy for us, the consumer. But we have all these leniencies for the corporation. So you kind of gotta ask yourself who's really the priority here. But again, supposedly these insurance companies are leaving the state. I think it's a bad idea. I don't think something's coming. Something. They know something. They know something is on the verge. They know something is on its way. Obviously, we don't know. We have no idea. We're completely blind and unaware of it. I just think what's been happening is going to occur more so. And instead of them paying out the funds to the people who make the claims, they want to go someplace else where they can keep the money themselves and pay out as little, if any, as possible. What's your opinion? What do you guys think? What do you say? Does that kind of make sense to you? Is that far-fetched? What's your opinion on that? If you guys have the Spreaker app, S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R, you can download the Spreaker, fill out a profile, and in episode 134, when we're talking about this, or any of the other episodes you listen to, you can go ahead and give feedback. You also could follow us on the YouTube channel, which is under the parent company of The GNS Inc. THEGNSINC. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys for today. It's like I said, it's going to be a very brief episode, which try to make it as brief as possible. And we're going to go ahead and close it out on this, man. Listen, thank you very much, guys, for your time. What's your feedback on today's episode? I'd greatly like to know. Follow us on social media, E.I.TH.R, Instagram, as well as Twitter, GNSETV.com, our TV channel. We greatly appreciate it if you guys subscribe to that. It's a free subscription. Just fill out a profile and make that happen. And then, yeah, man, just pass the word to your people about the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Greatly appreciate your boy D-Cal. 916-282-9372 is the phone number for the podcast. So you can call, speak to me. You can shoot a text message. Hey, D-Cal, talk about this. That's pretty much it, man. So we're about to end this out right now, so you guys can enjoy the rest of your evening, the rest of your day, or depending where you're at in the country, just playing in the world, the rest of your morning. It's your boy D-Cal, the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Appreciate it, man. You guys take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time for episode 135. All right, we out.